Let's talk about CSS. Do you think CSS is a programming language or not? No. Yes? No? No? Not yet. Not yet. Do we have things like if-else in CSS? No? Maybe? Not yet? What happens if I create a media query? Isn't it a type of if-else? Yeah? It's a controversial question, right? No one agrees whether CSS is a programming language or not. But anyway, it's important, right? I hope we agree on that. Do we agree CSS is important? Yeah? Seems a trivial question, but you can imagine how many senior developers don't care about CSS, yeah? CSS is important. To me, it's completely unacceptable to be a really good JavaScript developer, a full stack JavaScript developer, without some acceptable understanding of CSS. We're not asking you to be the next Leonardo da Vinci, but at least you should be able to understand how CSS works, how to create a page, how to lay out, how to play with colors, box model, all these sort of things. So today, on the next 28.5 minutes, I would like to talk about CSS, and I will try to orient the session a bit about what some of you are doing at the moment, which is the overlays, the floating elements, and these sort of things. So, the very first thing I would like to show you, and this is not strictly speaking part of the CSS workshop, but that applies to every other workshop, is how do I like to work? What's my preferred setup? You may not agree on that at all, but this is the way I work. So at the moment I got my Visual Studio, right? You see, with some basic welcome to the amazing world of CSS message. Then I got my Google Chrome, yeah? So if I change the text, then, you know, it gets reflected in the browser. But you see, I need to do a lot of ping pong, yeah? Up and down. Browser to IDE, IDE to browser. So I'm not very happy with that. So what I do is to put both windows side by side. We can do that easily. If you are a Windows user, you can snap a window on the left and another window on the right. Yeah? If you are a Mac user, unless you have a very old version of Mac, you can, first of all, if any of these two windows is maximized, you need to keep it floating around the screen. So once your two target windows are floating, you hold the maximize button and then you see you can snap them. So I'm going to snap the editor on the left and then the browser on the right. So now this looks much better to me, because if I change something, I don't need to do any alt tab. Yeah, it's all in one place. Also, do you remember what we explained yesterday in the very first workshop? What should be always open when doing some coding? DevTools, correct. So, I also like to put DevTools on the right-hand side. Yeah, something like that. That's the way it works for me. And I have a small laptop, 13-inch. Yeah? So you have a bigger one, 14, 15-inch, even better. If you have an external screen, even better, right? So I always do that, and that works really well for me. Anyway, you may not agree, just trying to share the way I feel comfortable doing some coding. So once we have a acceptable setup, then we can start talking about CSS. So I got a title. First of all, do you know how to change the color of the text? Color? Where? Correct. You may have noticed that on top of app.javascript, we got app.css, that you may have some CSS on it by default. I remove everything, so now it's clean and I can start creating some very sexy stylings. So, as someone mentioned already, you know, there are different ways to do that, but I think it's pretty sensible to add a class name. So I'm going to the class name, What's the name of the class name? We can put whatever we want here, right? My general rule of thumb is if you are creating a React component, this is a React component, right? The app, then the root class has the same name. Yeah. Why? This is about name spacing. We will see in a future session what specificity is and how specificity works in CSS. But for now, this is a way that I know that if I refer to .app, that will affect the entire component.
Would you use like IDs?
I'm not a big fan of IDs because IDs are supposed to be unique. Yeah, that's why they are IDs. Today, having unique things in the web is a bit controversial because the web is about reusing components. But anyway, if you have something that you're sure that's unique, you can use an ID, no problem at all. We talk about IDs, of course, when talking about specificity. IDs were very useful in the 90s, where it was very hard to access the DOM. However, today, with things like React, we don't need them that much. So, again, color. I want to have a green color. How do we do that on the text? Color. Green. Here you go. It's correct. A bit hard to see, but that's correct. What if instead of the color, I want to change the background? Background?
No, background color.
Background color. Correct. Yeah? Can we use... you can use background, that's correct. Background is a shorthand. If you, there is a specificity difference between background and background color. Yeah? If you use background, you can define a few things. You can define a color, you can define an image, you can define how many times the image repeats. Correct. Background is like the combination of background dash color, background dash image, background dash repeat. So, you know, but I like to keep my CSS really specific. So background color, because I just want to change the color. Yeah? Can we set, for instance, instead of green, red, or purple, can we set something like an hexadecimal color here? Yes? You can? Yeah? Do you have any favorite X color? FFF. C1, C1, C1. C1, C1, C1. Yeah? It's a gray color. Yeah? It's an 90s color if you want. The good thing about VS Code is once you set the color, the X color is giving you a hint about how it will look like. You see on the left hand side. You can even, there is a color picker here. It comes sometimes. I'm not very sure how to enable it. You see? You need to hover. Yeah, it's somewhere, right? There is a way to select your color. I got it. You see? So then you can pick your color. It's a good thing of VS Code. There is a new thing in CSS, which is opacity. You can change the opacity of the background. So, you know, on top of the X, you can do RGB. RGB stands for what? Red, green, blue, correct. So then you can set some colors on it, right? Yeah, red color. Yeah, only red or only green, yeah, whatever. But now, with CSS, with modern CSS, CSS3, you can add A, RGB A. With RGB A, you can pass a fourth argument, which is the alpha. It's the opacity of the background. So if I put 0, it's transparent. If I put 1, yeah, it's full color. And if I put 0.5, it's half transparent. So if there was anything in the background, it will be half visible. Yeah? So this is basics about colors. Has anyone heard about the box model? Yeah? What's the box model?
The box model.
Yeah? Yeah. So when we talk about CSS, about positioning and stuff like that, there are a few properties that are very important. This is a classic question in a job interview. What's the box model? You'll remember me in the interview because of not paying attention today. So with the box model, you can change a few properties. First of all, let's put a border. So how do we put a border on the box? Border, what? 3 pixels, solid, red. Yeah? Again, this is a shorthand of 3 properties. Border width, border style, and border color. Yeah? You can put them in one go. What styles do we have? We have a dotted. Yeah? You see the change? Do you see anything, by the way? If I zoom it a bit. Let me change the text just for readability purposes. Just welcome. Yeah. So, yeah, you see the call, you see the style, right? We got dashed. Yeah. We got few different styles. So, this is the border. The border sets the boundaries of the box, as you can imagine. But how do we change the space between the text, yeah, and the border? How do we increase that space here? Padding, correct. So with padding, we can do something like that, 30 pixels. Boom, you see? Let me do something. Yeah, I think it's readable enough, right? You can see it. So, yeah. So with that rule, there is now, we're adding a gap. Yeah, 30 pixels on top, 30 pixels at the bottom, on the left, and on the right. What if we want to add 60 pixels on the left? How do we do that? Padding left. 60 pixels. Look, welcome message. Moves to the right. 60 pixels. Yeah. Also with padding, there is shorthand. You can specify the 4 paddings in one go. Look. Yeah, this is a bit silly, but that's correct. Do you know which one is the first one? Top. The next one? Right. Bottom. Correct. Clockwise. Yeah. So if I just want to change the left one, which one is it? The last one. Correct. If I put 120 pixels here, yeah, it goes to the right. This is padding. So padding happens inside of the box. That means if I add a color again, I'm going to put my favorite color, which is cerulean. So if I put that color, you see it's inside of the box. So we've been talking about 2 things, padding and border. They affect the size of the box, definitely. Yeah? Because if I put a bold border, you see, it's changing the behavior of the box. What if we have, let's add another box. Let me change that a bit. So I'm going to add a proper box. Div class name box. So once we do that, then now we need obviously to change the CSS. So box here, then we got the box, and then let's add another box underneath. Yeah, 2 boxes. What if we think that, you know, we want to add some gap between them? How do we do that? Margin. I like that. Margin has the same API as padding. You can use the shorthand, margin, or you can use margin top, margin right, margin left. It's literally the same thing. Margin 30 pixels. Look at how it changes. Ooh, you see? So these are the elements that define the box model. The padding, the border, and the margin. If something is not working as expected, with DevTools, you can analyze how much padding, how much border, and how much margin each element has. How do we do that? First of all, let's select the box we want to analyze. You remember that button here? If you click here, then you can select an element. And then, somewhere, because my resolution doesn't help, here you go. If you go to the styles, computed, you see that this is the box model. Yeah, look at how sexy this is. You see different colors. The colors don't reflect my visual colors. These are the colors that Google selects. Yeah, the blue color on the right, this is the size of the content. If you hover, it's very hard to see because I have selected a blue background. So let me change it to, give me a good color, guys. Green. Green. Let's see. Yeah, slightly better, right? You can see, first of all, the content is 111 pixels width. Then the padding, you see, is the blue, the green one. You see? That's the padding. Then we got the border, and then finally we got the margin. You see? You can evaluate, and if you pay attention, you see the pixels on each side. Yeah. Can we play instead of pixels with percent? Can we say margin 30%? Of course we can. It looks weird, yeah. Still 30, we can put 10%, looks a bit better, yeah. But of course we can. So when we talk about dimensions, we're talking about pixels, percent. There's different ways to measure, right? Distances and sizes. Anyway, let's keep it simple for now. Is there any questions so far? No? That's easy, right? Yeah. Cool. Now let's talk about positioning. I would like to create an overlay similar to the one you are creating these days as part of Conflicts. So let me change the example a bit. I'm going to create a TV show. The title, tell me a movie you like, guys. Cinderella? Okay. Imagine that this is a movie, right? So let's add some very, very basic styles to the movie. Very basic. So movie. Let's set the background color. Pink. And then let's have what else? Nah, that's it. Let's keep it simple. Maybe some, yeah, let's leave it there for now. Some height, maybe 300 pixels, maybe. Yeah. Imagine that this is an image. So now, I don't want to display the title in there. I want to display the title when the user hovers the image. Yeah? So let's add a new element. Let's remove the title here. So just imagine that this canvas is the image, and I'm going to add a new class name inside called overlay. So with the overlay in here, I want to display, yeah, Cinderella. Yeah, I don't want to be here. I want to be hidden by default. So look at my strategy. If I select the title, it's here. You see. I want it to be at the bottom, somewhere here, so whenever I hover the pink box, it will slide up. That's the plan. So the very first thing we should understand is that Cinderella title is a floating element. By definition, HTML is block-based. That means this is one div, the next div goes underneath, the next div goes underneath. But we want to change that rule here. We don't want to display the title underneath. We want to display it on top. Floating on top of the pink box. Do you know how to float elements in JavaScript? In HTML? In CSS? No? Display float? No? Position absolute. Float left is about positioning, left and right. I don't want to put it on the left or on the right. I want to display it on top, in 3D, on top, closer to the screen. So, if we go to the CSS, overlay, look at how much it changed if I put position absolute. Doesn't change at all. But because now it's floating, I can move it to the bottom of the pink box. How do we put it at the bottom of the pink box? Bottom what? 0. Let's see what happened with bottom 0. First of all, you cannot see anything. You don't see anything. But maybe now you notice it's at the very bottom of the screen. Yeah? That's a classic problem when you start dealing with position absolute. It works as designed, but not as expected. Bottom 0. 0 of what?
Zero from the body of the
Correct.
HTML.
Correct. Yeah.
Put as another position relative.
Correct. Correct. When we said bottom 0, 0 taking what? What are the boundaries? Because we haven't told the browser yet where is the limit. Yeah. The browser doesn't know, so it's like, I don't know where to display that. I'll leave it at the very, very bottom of the screen, which is not what we wanted. Yeah. So the way to fix it is on the parent element, which is the movie, we can put position what? Relative. Correct. Look at how that's changed. Position relative. Ooh. Yeah. So in other words, when you have an element with position absolute, the overlay, here you go, it will look on the ancestor, so it will look on the parent elements until any of them has position relative. As soon as it finds an element with position relative, it will take that box as the boundaries. If we don't have any parent element with position relative, the browser will default it to the very bottom of the screen. So look at what happens if I disable the position relative. Remember, you can disable properties in the browser. You see how it moves? Any question? No? Cool. Let's talk about user interaction. The title is there, but I don't want the title to be visible. I just want to enable it when the user hovers the pink box. So, how do we do user interaction? How do we capture the hover event in CSS?
No, you have to use the name, hover. But
Hover.
you have to create the same class. You have to write movie,
Movie, okay.
double dot,
Double dot,
no, like that, no.
vertical, colon,
Colon
colon,
and hover.
hover,
And now you have to put overlay, space, dot,
space, overlay. Why space, Walter?
because you are saying that when movie is on hover, we are going to change the overlay element. We don't want to work.
Do you agree with Walter? Yeah, Walter is completely right. That's the way CSS works, right? So here we said find the movie, find all the movies, actually, and then when the user hovers, means the cursor, the mouse goes inside of that movie, then space means find all the overlays inside of that hover movie, and then do what? Opacity. No, I don't want to change the opacity. I want to just display it somewhere else. For instance, bottom.
Here display visible, but in the overlay
Yeah.
display none. Because we want
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. Okay, let's trust Davide. So overlay by default display what, Davide?
none.
None. And then on hover display what? Block. Okay, let's see what happened. Whoa, David is right. See, the position is not correct, but the mechanism works, which is something extremely rewarding. But now I want to change the mechanism a bit because my plan is to slide up, right? I don't want to hide, well, I want to hide it, but I don't want to play with display none or display block. I want the overlay to be always there, hidden somewhere at the bottom. So when I hover, I want to have an effect, a sexy visual effect where it shows from the bottom. Transition. Before talking about transition, let's talk about positioning. And then we'll see how to create a transition on top of the positioning. How do we play with the positioning?
So position minus 300.
Position minus 300. Yeah?
No,
Why 300 and not 3 million?
well, put it 3 million. The thing is that you have to put it under.
A negative, right? A negative value means it will go to the bottom. Yeah? Correct. Yeah, agree on that. And then on hover what? Position 0. Right. So, why is it not working?
Because we put pixel.
No. We need to play with all bottom and then
Correct, correct. It's not position, remember, bottom, yeah? Remember, position is absolute, meaning the title will float around. Okay, but absolute where? Where do you want to display it? Bottom, minus 300, bottom 0. Look, is it correct?
Yes, but we have to put the overlay here.
Overlay here.
Overflow here.
Right, so look, when you hover, it's perfect, yeah? It's there, now it's not there. The problem is, we don't want the title to be 300 pixels below, visible, yeah? That creates an awkward visual effect.
100.
Second? Minus 100, okay, let's try minus 100. It's still wrong, right? It just shouldn't be visible beyond the boundaries of the pink box. How do we say it in CSS? Please hide the elements that go beyond the pink box. Overflow hidden, correct. Where do we do that? In movie, in the pink box. Overflow hidden. Yeah, so now, look. Much better, right? Much better. Because now this is pretty nice, let's talk about animations. How can you make sure that for 1 second the title comes from the bottom? Yeah, Sule?
Why movie and not in overlay the hidden? Because movie should be like on the bottom of the whole screen, isn't it?
No, because who decides what is visible and what is not? The pink box. Yeah, the pink box, we're saying whatever is outside of the pink box, hide it. Yeah, if the overlay is inside of the pink box, display it. If it's outside of the pink box, hide it. Yeah? Yep.
Yeah, so in case that we want it to be in the whole screen, we could do it straight.
In the whole screen.
Yeah.
But if it's in the whole screen, you don't need the overflow.
No.
No, if it's in the whole screen, that's it, right? It's not going to go to the floor, the title, so that's fine. You don't need overflow hidden if it's full screen. Right, to prove the theory, you know actually, imagine that you want to style the overlay, right? Let's add some background color. This is a good hint, I hope. Background color yellow. Yeah? And then you said, yeah, but it doesn't look good, background color green. And then you try again, and so how do you debug that? It's a bit complicated because the overlay hides itself, right? So how can we keep the overlay always visible without changing the code? Does anyone know? Yeah, correct. I can keep the mouse, but if I keep the mouse there, I cannot check to the right-hand side. I cannot do anything else. I'm blocked. I'm sacrificing. I'm killing my mouse, right? I don't want to do that. I want freedom. I want to move my mouse around the screen. Yes, there is something on the DevTools. Very, very sexy. That because of a reason the majority of the developers ignored. If you notice, if you select the overlay, if you select the movie, because this is the element that is receiving the hover event, somewhere on top of the CSS panel, you see that column hop here? Yeah, if you click on it, you can simulate events. So you can simulate the user. Oh, that's fantastic, right? Because now it's simulating. Look at the circle here. It's like, hey, there is a fake event in there, yeah? So now that means that I can go, I have full control because I can change the colors. I can do whatever I want, right? So look, I can, for instance, change the position, or let me change the color first. Color to purple, yeah? You can do whatever you want. And just to prove the theory that whatever goes beyond the scope of the pink box is hidden, what happens if bottom is, look, you see, go slightly with your keyboard, going the down arrow key, you can prove that whenever it goes beyond the pink box, it gets hidden, yeah? As soon as you refresh, then all the changes are lost, so you start from fresh. I think that's a pretty good thing. So now, how do we animate the overlay?
We have two options.
We have 2 options.
Keyframes and transitions.
Keyframes. You mean animations?
Exactly.
Correct. Walter is completely right. There are 2 ways to do that.
The simplest is transition.
Correct. We'll talk about the differences between animations and transition. But in that particular case, the simple one, I agree with him, is transition. So with transition means, okay, bottom moves from minus 800 to 0. That takes how long? None. It's immediate. Yeah? Minus 100, 0. Yeah? You can do something very nice, very, very nice, which is, you can do transition, colon, and then which property do we want to evaluate? Which CSS property do we want to create a transition with? Bottom, correct. Then the second property is the type of transition. Could be linear, could be ease. There are different ways of animating things, right? Let's keep it easy, linear. And the third and last property is the duration of the time, correct? Let's put it 1 second, 1s. So now we try again. As soon as I hover, whoa, you see? So it works. Imagine that instead of 1 second, it's 0.1 seconds. We're going to have a blazing fast animation, right? But imagine that it doesn't work as expected. Another very fancy tool of the tools is we can slow down animations. You may have noticed, if you click on the free dot where you can rearrange your dev tools, there is a button, an option set, show console drawer, or if it's visible, hide console drawer. If you click on it, there's an animations panel, and look, you can slow down. You can simulate what happens if you slow down. You know, this kind of high-speed cameras that slow down the butterflies, and so that's the same thing. That's the same thing. Let's play the animation at 10%. How long the animation will take now to complete? What? 1 second, yeah? If at 100% speed, it takes 1/10 of a second. At 10% of speed, it takes 1 second, right? Basic maths. Look at what happened if I try again. You see? 1 second, 1 second, 1 second, 1 second. At 25%, how long will it take to complete? Quarter of a second, correct. You see? It's clearly quarter of a second, hopefully. So yeah, that's the way you can control transitions. I mentioned before that there are different types of transitions. For instance, let's put it to maybe 2 seconds to be able to read it. Linear means it goes to the same speed, yeah? You see? Starts, stop. Imagine that you are driving a car. When you drive a car or a motorbike, the speed is not constant, yeah? You accelerate, then you go to full speed, and then when you see a pedestrian, you slow down, right? So you can get a similar effect with ease. Yeah, ease. Look at what happened with ease. It gets a speed, and then it slows down. You see? It's subtle, but it's clearly different. If you're going to go crazy with transitions, the very last thing I would like to show today is that with DevTools, we can play around with transitions. Look, if you hover that, you see, look at how sexy this is. We can play with different styles. You see, staying the speed. You see, accelerate, decelerate. Always accelerating, yeah? So for instance, let's try that. Yeah, it's a bit hard to see, to be honest, but definitely something you can play with. Let's decelerate. Also, if that's not enough, we can even look at how kind of things we can do, right? This is pretty cool. Here it will bounce. You see? It will go above 0 and it will go down. Look. Yeah? It's pretty cool. So you can easily ruin your productivity spending some hours working with this. The good thing is, once you've done a weird transition, it tells you the result, tells you the resulting code. So if you like it, you can copy it and then put it in your Visual Studio, and it will persist forever. Yeah? if you do something like that, if you copy that line to your CSS, I will strongly recommend you to add a comment, because otherwise, if a colleague goes to that code, it will struggle. He or she will struggle to understand what effect you are trying to achieve. Yeah. So there is nothing wrong by here saying performing a sort of bouncing animation. Yeah. We put all. Ah, I see. Correct. So if we put all, let's see what happens. Still works, right? What's the difference between bottom and all? Bottom will only apply transitions whenever the bottom position changes. What happens if it's, apart from the bottom, we want to change the padding, or the margin, or the width, or the height? Yeah? Yeah? We can apply transition on multiple elements. So all is a way to say, apply that rule, that bouncing effect everywhere. Yeah? I'm not a big fan of all because it's less performant. That means that every single CSS property will have a listener to check if we are changing it or not. So try to be specific. Bottom, that's the only thing we look after now. Yeah? Anything else, guys? No? Yep, so that's the introduction to CSS. Thank you for watching. See you later.